Hardly a day goes by without somebody needing help on the ocean. The three guys we're about to meet needed help desperately. Within seconds, they went from cruising on their boat to treading water.
Peter Krause, Peter Wellman and Stuart Elliston grew up together. They've always been inseparable mates, and as adults, they enjoyed working on fishing trawlers. Their mateship helped them through one of the most incredible survival stories ever churned up by the savage seas. It all began one sunrise off Western Australia's north coast. The weather was rough.
Boats toss around all the time, but for some reason at this certain angle I woke up, and at that split second I heard Peter Wellman say, "Stuart!"
As it was over to one side, this other wave just come up from out of nowhere and hit it, just to give it that extra bit to pull it over, and that was it. It just went over to its side and then didn't come back up.
And the boat was leaning on an angle, and half the wheelhouse was full of water, and you could feel the electricity. And the door was a sliding door.
And it was a real effort just to lift this heavy wooden door up. And then by the time I'd looked around to say, "Go on guys, quick, I've got it up enough," they'd sort of gone out.
And I sat there for about probably 2 or 3 seconds, swam away about 15 foot, and it just went stern down first.
And gone. Next minute, I know, we like just looking around. It was just bubbles, bits of debris, and parts of the boat floating around, looking around, going, "Wow, you know, this is it. We're in the water," and realising we haven't got no life jackets, no life raft, and.
It was a chance glimpse at the trawler's radar that gave the men more than hope to cling to.
Now, aiming towards home, we'd always go past this buoy, but I had just picked it up on the radar, so I knew we were within a couple of k's away anyway, because it was flashing pretty bright.
So we started swimming towards that through great effort, because these massive big waves pushing you underwater for what seemed like minutes, and you could fight to the surface and take a breath, and all you see is the white foam right up there of another massive wave coming down.
And I remember saying to Stewie on the way there, "This is a life and death situation." Stuart said, "Yeah, I know it is."
The boat took just 30 seconds to sink from the time it was hit by that first wave. Eventually, the three made it to a navigation buoy, having salvaged only a waterproof torch and a foam seat cushion in a vinyl cover.
It was great to get out of that water. That was the main thing, try and dry everything out and get some warmth amongst us.
So we actually broke the foam out into sections and shoved it up the shirt, well, singlets and that we had at the time, at the back and front, try and keep warm. But that was no good, and then that ended up going over the side and floating away, so yeah.
We'd knocked the lights out straight away, and we just had one that was on constantly. We thought maybe someone might pick it up and come in.
Once we got that lid off and we were taking light shifts, 2 of us would go down and one would stay out doing the SOSs with the light.
And we were actually told afterwards, a guy called Jimbo, when they were sailing out looking for us, he actually looked down and said to the skipper of that boat, "Oh, look, that buoy there's flashing on, you know, differently." And the skipper just turned and said, "Oh, yeah, it's nothing."
Near naked and cold, the three men battled on day after day.
We only had, like I said, a tank top, a t-shirt, a jumper that was all saggy anyway. So we just cuddled up as tight as you could, and you'd cuddle up to the person and hold onto them for warmth, and they were so warm. I remember feeling the other person is so warm, and you'd be right in with your head, their head would be here, and you'd just have their chest. And
because what was the killer was the screaming heat during the daytime. At night, at least it was cool, and you had some kind of satisfaction from the coolness, even though it was like icy cold and you'd shiver to death. But it's still better than being baked.
It did rain a little bit, probably for about 5 minutes, and we were actually licking the water off the rigging. That's how desperate we became.
Any object at sea for a time will grow barnacles and seaweed and then attract fish. This buoy was no different.
We tried grabbing them, Pete and I, and we attempted quite a few times to grab them, and you could actually grab them, but you couldn't hold them because they were too slippery, and they'd flick away, and you'd have scales and stuff on your hand, and you know, by this time we were weak anyway.
Because we were already hallucinating, and dream, and could taste things in our mouth, like hamburgers and Coke. And we were like, oh, I can just taste the Coke, and it wasn't like just talk. It was reality. We could, at the time, you could really taste it, and things like that. So we knew we were in trouble. Just a little climb from the up the ladder to the top where the light was on the buoy. That was an effort.
We all had at least one instance over this period where we would just lose it and, oh, we're not going to be rescued, this is the end of it.
Your body was falling apart, basically, slowly, and your mind, of course. So a lot of the times you'd find yourself thinking about nothing in particular, but just sitting there staring for ages and ages, and you wouldn't even realise you're doing it.
Yeah, we sang. I remember one song in particular, that song, it goes like a Reba, Reba, she put a spell on me, she's a witch queen, that kind of one. I remember singing that, and the boys sang a couple other songs. We told jokes.
Last seen leaving Port Hedland on Tuesday night, bound for Point Sampson, usually a 10-hour journey. They've not been seen nor heard of since. All attempts at radio contact have failed, and
The days melted into each other. No water, no food. But a search was underway, and the threesome regularly saw spotter plates.
And today, 5 aircraft returned to Port Hedland after a fruitless search up to 100 nautical miles off the coast. They'll be out again at first light tomorrow.
They were doing a grid pattern, so we knew but they were looking for us. And occasionally they'd come reasonably close. We thought, oh, well, they'd go straight over the top of us next time, but they'd be miles away. You'd see a little speck in the distance and you'd say to the guys, oh, there's a plane, there's a plane, there's a plane. And everyone would look at it and you'd, yeah, you get excited, it is a plane. And it wasn't until it got close you noticed it was a seagull, and it was just like a letdown. Oh no, it's a seagull, oh no.
I was drifting in and out of consciousness, I guess, for a good half an hour at a time. And yeah, I just couldn't be bothered getting out that last day. I thought, no, I've had enough of this torture.
Even though we were drifting in and out of really understanding what was happening, we knew that things were getting quite desperate.
After the crew had been missing for 4.5 days, the largest air search ever mounted off the coast of Western Australia was winding down. Relatives convinced the crew of a Royal Australian Air Force Orion to take one last look on its way home.
And I remember seeing it on the outline going past the puke, going down. And I remember thinking to myself, we're over here, almost willing it to try and turn around. And then it slowly banked around. It kept banking around, and we kept going, come on. And then it straightened up. I remember seeing it straighten up right in our track, heading towards us. And we couldn't believe it. Are you kidding? It's coming. And from what I remember, I was watching it all the way, we all were. We were mesmerised by the fact that it was coming and it wasn't turning.
A US pilot in Australia, as part of a Navy exchange program, was flying the Orion plane that spotted the men.
Backtracked around, came back on top of it at 100 feet this time, and there was 3 of them out there all waving their arms, so a real good feeling to find all 3 of them, for them to be alive after that long.
The Orion saw us tilt its wings, like the old victory tilt in the war, and he came.
Although found, for Stuart the drama wasn't over yet. The buoy which had saved his life would now try to claim it back.
As the helicopter was lifting the men from the buoy, the top of the marker struck the chopper, tearing afloat.
I don't know whether it was just one of the freak waves or whatever coming in, but the buoy rolled a little further, a little closer to us, and I moved away, but the buoy impacted the side of the skid.
I was last, and as I got to the top, I just went to take a dive, and it must have been the wrong time. I grabbed the skid, and I was just hanging there. And at that time, the buoy just came up behind me and smashed me in the back. And I just let go, you know, because I just couldn't take that punishment. And I just let go, and it hurt, and thought, well, this is it, you know. But at the same time, the copper and Peter Wallen grabbed me at the same time, which was you know, just a split-second reaction because they saw what happened and pulled me in.
Stuart and the two Peters were flown to hospital and quickly recovered. When we come back, we'll show you a simple signalling trick which just may have saved these men a lot of pain.
Oh, yeah. Woohoo! Back on land.
Everything that floats in the ocean for more than a few weeks becomes a mini ecosystem. People stuck on life rafts for long periods of time find they are living right on top of barnacles and edible kelp, and as the food chain grows, bigger and bigger fish hang around. But how do you catch such slippery creatures?
It wasn't until afterwards my mother said, well, we should have taken your undies off and put them on your hand, and you probably could have grabbed them and held them. It would have given you a little bit of grip, but we didn't think of that because we were a bit wasted by then anyway.
We'd heard that you cannot drink salt water, and there has been cases of people going crazy. And we knew this, we had it in our minds. We're even that afraid of not even touching the salt water on our lips. Like you can imagine for 4 or 5 days not even having moisture on your lips.
These guys get full points for stamina and willpower. Their sea training was spot on.
You need so much water to get salt out of your body, and there's more salt in salt water than what you can have to discharge the salt out of your body. So basically you may take fluid in, but you're taking in more salt than you can disperse out of your body.
Mr. Elliston is praying the three have found refuge on one of those islands and that the weekend will bring good news.
They were brought up together, they went to the same school together. They went down the beach, well, they'd done everything together.
For me, it was more what the rest of my family was going through, in particular my mother and father. So that was the part that stresses me out when I think about all that.
It's times like this that good friends support each other, and that's just what the 3 old schoolmates did.
We tried to have at least a laugh a day. I do remember we at least had a good crack up every day, which just helped a lot, I think. Just blow away and just, you know, keep it going from there. Don't worry about the past, just keep it going, hang in there.
We sung songs, we told jokes, and that was like, you know, near to the end where we were probably getting to our worst part.
The 3 men tried all kinds of signals with the light on the buoy, and they almost worked. But there's one thing they didn't try. These solar panels have got very reflective surfaces. Almost anything shiny can be used to signal. A piece of glass can be made reflective just by covering its back with material. Depending on where you're stuck, make-up mirrors and car mirrors might also be handy if you know how. Hold your arm up like this and put the mirror near your eye. If you get the sunlight reflecting between your fingers, you've got some idea of where you're sending your signal. You'll be amazed at how far that reflection will travel. Peter Krause, Peter Wellman and Stuart Elliston had only hours to live when rescued. It's an amazing tale, and they're lucky enough to be able to pass it on to their grandchildren.
It's built a stronger bond, I'd say, for sure, because we've all got something in common, whereas we know we all participated in helping one another, and we'll never forget that.
Channel 18, I'm gone.
After the break, a long-distance call for help. You'll see that even the best prepared travellers can come unstuck.
No, not a hope in hell. You try and walk anywhere and you're dead.